Hi guys, it's Lori the Frugal Mom. I am laying in bed relaxing at the end of a long day. It's been quite a couple of days here, and I will give you an update on that. So a little bit of a life update again. I apologize that I'm really not posting any other type of videos lately. Oh my goodness, just so much going on. So, all right. The first thing, my son was hit by a car on Friday. Now, don't worry. Thankfully, he is fine. His teeth, not so much, and I will post some before and after pictures at the end of the video. Yeah. You know how things always happen in those few minutes that you leave your house? Well, I was having my air conditioning in my car charged and an oil change on Friday, and I had just gone to pick up my car from the mechanic. The mechanic is literally like less than 10 minutes away from here. And as soon as I got back in my car after I paid, I got a phone call from Matt telling me to get home because he had been hit by a car. Well, let me tell you, that's like a parent's worst nightmare. He assured me that he was okay, just his teeth weren't. And, you know, of course you don't know what's going on when you get a call like that. You don't know is he really okay? What does he mean his teeth aren't? You know, at the time there was no ambulance or police officer there. Luckily, the person who hit him had stopped to help him. One of his friends was there to help as well. So that was a good thing. You know, I'm relieved that all it was his teeth. Yeah, it was really scary. And of course, you know, you just can't get home fast enough. I mean, the 8 minutes it took me to get from the mechanics to home, or to where the accident was, which was right down the street from home, it seemed like an eternity. And he called me a few times, and, you know, you're not really supposed to be on the phone when you're driving. You know, and so that just seemed to make everything take longer, and it was really just horrendous. You know, I got there and he was sitting on the back of an ambulance, and he had been examined by the paramedics. They told me that they thought that he was fine. He hasn't been complaining and everything. They did a quick examination. They took vitals, and they thought that his teeth were the one thing that needed to be taken care of right away, because he broke 3 of them, 3 front teeth. Halfway up the tooth, he was bleeding. And I knew from, you know, my previous experience in dentistry that, you know, this was not good news. The parts of the teeth that were broken when his mouth hit the handlebars, they were pulverized. They were just dust. So there was no use in even trying to find them. I looked on the street. There was nothing. So you're probably wondering what exactly happened. Well, teenagers seem to think that they're invincible. So he was on one of those mini e-bikes, sort of like what we used to call a crotch rocket, not a moped really. It only goes like 15 to 25 miles an hour, which is still fast enough to get yourself into, you know, a pickle if you're not careful. We had bought him a helmet, a nice safe one, and he forgot it when he left the house. Now, before I left the house, I told him to stay in the house until I got home. My sister was home, however, she was resting. And, you know, I don't like him to really go out when nobody's here to, like, keep an eye on, like, his whereabouts. You know, and I told him I'll be back in a few minutes, and I really would have been. It would have been like a 20-minute trip altogether, not even. So, yeah, he forgot his helmet. And we've been talking to him about the rules of the road. We taught him how to make hand signals for turn signals to stop. He has taken the theory of safe driving. He's a sophomore this year, and that's just something they do here in New Jersey. They have them take that course, and then they are supposed to test for their permit. You know, so he should know some of these rules. You know, like you're only supposed to drive on the right side of the street. And for some reason, he was trying to cross in between 2 parked cars, and he wasn't paying attention. And not a couple houses down from there, there was a young lady pulling out of a side street, and she couldn't see him either. So he went right out in front of her, and he hit the front of her bumper. And thankfully she was going slow enough that she could stop. But wow, it was just incredibly scary. She was shaken up. Of course, she's a young girl in her 20s, and she was very apologetic. Her parents were there, and her father seemed more concerned about the bumper to his daughter's car. And while I understand that does have to be, addressed, I mean, my son got hit, and I know it was his fault, but can we please put what's more important first, human life? So, yeah, some people are unreal. Yes, he was careless, and it was his fault. Thankfully, I have still connections in the dental industry, and I tell you that I am so very grateful for the friends that I still have in dentistry. The doctor that I went to, Dr. Matthew Penner in Aberdeen, New Jersey, he is incredible. He was the last dentist that I had the privilege of working with before my accident. He does incredible restorative work. He is a perfectionist. And I don't say that lightly. I've worked with prosthodontists, which are basically cosmetic specialists, just in layman's terms. They do higher end restorative dentistry. But, his restorative work / cosmetic is on par with the specialists. He really takes his time. He explains. He's gentle. He has a great bedside manner, actually. For many of you who know, my Matthew has ADHD and a few other issues. It's not easy for him to be in a dental chair for a long amount of time, let alone do anything for a long amount of time. He just doesn't have the attention span. Well, he was in the chair for 7.5 hours on Saturday. Dr. Penner went out of his way on his day off to spend the day with us, fixing my son up. He paid an assistant to help him because, it's a lot of work. For those who shake their head and say, geez, that's a long time, it's really not for the amount of work that he had done. You have to remember that there was a lot of bleeding because the teeth were still alive. They hadn't died from disease or anything. They're a healthy 15-year-old, so the bleeding had to be stopped. It's 3 separate root canals. Then what we call posts and cores. And then he had to build up the teeth with white filling material to basically give Matt the appearance of full teeth again until we can do crowns. So that's what took so long. So he did an absolutely just tremendous job, really, and I am just so eternally grateful that I still have his friendship. And I have so few people who have my back. It's nice to know that he's one of them, and I will always have his back as well. I mean, it's funny when I think about it. There was a few times where I really did save his behind when he was a young dentist. He's still a young dentist. He's in his mid-30s. He just had his first child. But yeah, there was quite a few times. The last time I worked was almost 6 years ago. So I worked with him for the 2 or 3 years before that. I was primarily his assistant in that practice, and we were a good team. So that happened. And it's been a tiring couple of days, being at the dentist all day long on Saturday. I mean, I swear to you guys, we were in bed by 9 o'clock on Saturday night. We had to get up at 6. Oh, excuse me, guys. We had to be at the office by 8 in the morning. Yep. So that was a day. And, then I don't know if I told you guys, but did I? Well, I'm telling you now. So I apologize if I forget. So my daughter, she's neurodivergent as well, and she's brilliant. She has different issues than my son. She is mildly autistic on the spectrum. They used to call her version of, her level rather, of autism Asperger's. So she's very very academically inclined, very studious. So she actually got a scholarship to the 2-year college in our community. It's called the New Jersey All-Stars. It's for the top 15% of her graduating class. And I'm so proud of her. She has that full 2.5-year scholarship, and she doesn't have to pay a dime. So that is awesome. To me, that is a flex. Now, because of Gianna's rank and because of, just her grades and overall how well she did when she was in high school, she could pretty much go to any college that she wanted. The reason why she's not is because she doesn't want to spend all of her educational money on, her undergrad. So she's being very smart by just utilizing this scholarship so that the first 2.5 years of her education are free. She may not even need 2.5 years at Brookdale. Who knows? Because she's already got some college credits. I believe she's got 6 college credits going into Brookdale because that's all that she needed to take this year. Well, she didn't even need to take them, but there's nothing left for her to take besides electives, and why is she going to do that? So yeah. So I am extremely proud of her. Now, one of the reasons why she was gifted this scholarship rather, it's not only academically based, but it's also need based. So, many of you know that I am low income and I live on a fixed income. And even when I was working, I was considered low middle income. There's only so much you can do. So she's got a couple of friends who live on the wealthier side of town. And, that's an experience that I'll never know. And I'm okay with that. But one of the parents had said to, I guess my daughter's friend, with my daughter there, when they were talking about where my daughter's friend would go to college, she said, well, why don't I just do what Gianna's doing? I'll just go to Brookdale for the first 2 years, and, then we won't have to worry about paying for it. And the parents said, well, you won't qualify for that because we're not piss pot poor. Yeah. So, I don't want to generalize and say that all people who have wealth are like this, but they just don't have any idea what it's like to live on the other side of things, and they're not really in touch with reality. First of all, I don't consider myself or us piss pot poor. Have we had better times financially? Yes. Are there struggles? Of course. These are struggles that most everyday people have. Do I have a lot of concerns about the future? Of course I do. But, excuse me, guys. To call somebody piss pot poor is just completely unnecessary. First off, this person doesn't know anything really about me, the way that we live, that sort of thing. I think this person dropped off and picked up their daughter, once or twice from my home. And yes, the neighborhoods are vastly different. But I tell you what, my children have never wanted for anything. They have always been very well taken care of. When I had the ability to work, I worked 2 and 3 jobs so they could have wonderful food on the table, home-cooked meals, no matter how tired I was. They were raised in a single-family home. They had a pool in the backyard. They had a swing set. They lived on a dead end that was safe so that they could ride their bikes and their scooters and do whatever they wanted without danger of being hit by a car. There's a park right around the corner, a school less than 10 minutes walking distance, a nice little school, by the way. Beach right down the street from our house, and yes, it was a middle to lower class income neighborhood, but still part of a very nice town. And, it's not as nice as it was 10 years ago because, a certain element has moved in, and it's been steadily happening in the last 20 years, unfortunately. But I can't do anything about that, and it has nothing to do with me being piss-pot poor. I just feel like that is so ignorant, I mean, I've always driven, well, I had one new car in my lifetime, but that doesn't matter to me. I always had a decent car to drive them around in. They had activities. They went to nice camps. We didn't always get to go away on vacation, but we did do quite a few day trips, weekend trips, and they always had access to health care. They both had braces. They had beautiful teeth. I mean, they were always very well groomed, very clean. They always had nice toys to play with. They always had nice winter jackets and whatever they could possibly want or need. And a lot of the times, they looked better and were taken care of better than a lot of people who came from wealthy households. So I just don't understand where this piss-pot poor thing came from. Yes. Yes, I live on a limited income. But, I wasn't raised much different. So to me, I can get along on a very meager amount. And I don't really need much, like I said. And I'm very happy with my life as it is. Do I wish some things were different? Of course. Very little of it has to do with money, though. The only thing that money really does is it buys you security. It doesn't buy you happiness. You have to be happy with the life that you have, and you have to be grateful for every little thing. For instance, I'm grateful right now that I have a roof over my head and that I'm laying in this very comfortable bed and that my house is cool and that we were fed today. I'm grateful that my son is okay. Just those things. Like, I don't lay in bed dreaming of having material things and all of that, or things that I don't need. And see, that's the thing to me. Like, so many people would consider us piss-pot poor because they don't realize that most of the things that they have and most of the things that they want or think they need, you don't. And you can be perfectly happy on so much less. I just think that people become accustomed to a certain way of life. They look down their noses at those of us down here, which is a shame. He even had, I'm sorry, the parent, I'm trying not to, really give it away too much, but the parent had even made the assumption that I live on, public assistance. I most certainly do not. Again, I brought this up many times in this channel, but I don't know why people think that Social Security is public assistance. It most certainly is not. I worked for a really long time and really hard to pay into Social Security Disability, which is the program that I get my benefits from. And the Medicare that I get, I pay for that every month, and I paid into the part that they're paying for. So it doesn't make sense. The child support that I receive, that's for me to take care of my children, and believe me, very little is spent on me. Very little. People just blow my mind. I don't receive food stamps because I make something like $120 over the limit. I did at one point. If I go to the food pantry, that's not considered public assistance. I just need hand up. I just really wish that people on the other side of the fence, meaning the wealthier people, would understand what programs are what's considered public assistance, what piss pot poor really is. A piss pot is something that people who didn't have running water or a bathroom in their house, and this is many centuries ago, would use a piss pot. And sometimes nobility would even use it because there just was no running water. There were no bathrooms in homes. So they had, or a chamber pot in their house, in their bedroom. piss pot for. You know what? I'm a lady, so I'm not going to be rude. And I'm not going to curse. But you guys will know what I mean when I say this. To that person who made that comment and looked down their nose at my family and I. You're number one, dude. Number one. And I think you need to look in your own mirror, because your child is seriously feeling neglected sometimes, and that really saddens my heart, because this child is a good kid and deserves all the love and attention and affection in the world. And you're too busy having your head up your behind most of the time to notice this kid. Said my piece. So, in closing, I doubt this person's ever going to watch this, but I'm proud of my life. I worked really hard. I made a difference. I made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And I'm not trying to speak too highly of myself, but I happen to know that if it wasn't for me, a lot of people wouldn't have had dentistry done, that I helped them through it. Maybe they would have, but maybe they wouldn't have gotten through it as well, because they were extremely anxious. And I was able to help quite a lot of people get through. In fact, a lot of times in a few practices, the anxious patients would ask for me to be their assistant. I know that I made a difference. I turned people's idea of dentistry into one that was positive, myself and whatever doctor I was working for, and that is an amazing thing. No, I'm not going to get an award for it. No, nobody's going to write a book about it. It's not going to make me famous. But I know in my heart that I did something good for the world. And at the end of the day, that's pretty damn awesome, right? At least I think so. So I might be piss pot poor, but hey, I made a difference. And one of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou: I was a rainbow in someone's cloud, many times over. So I'm rich in that way, and you're piss pot poor in the other way. So there you go. So, in other news, I have some doctor's appointments set up, and I will let you guys know how they all go. I have been eating more red meat. I feel slightly better, but at the end of my days, I still am just really, really exhausted. I have a hard time getting up and going. I'm trying to pace myself as far as housework. Yeah. And that's all I can do, right, guys? And I am so happy with the progress of my little garden, and I'll show you the pictures. My potatoes sprouted overnight. It's so funny because I planted these seed potatoes about 3 weeks ago, and I was a little bit concerned that foliage hadn't come up yet. But as soon as I had that concern in my head, literally, guys, the next day or two, the foliage popped up. And I just hilled them, which is to cover up the foliage so they don't get too much sunlight and too much water. If they get too much sunlight, they get bitter, they turn green. So this is pretty exciting. I hope that I have a really good yield of vegetables this year. I've been making fertilizer out of eggshells, crushed up old eggshells, because we eat quite a few eggs in this house, and coffee grounds. So yeah, all good things like that, and it's really been helping. I know that my asparagus, I got one little baby asparagus. It's so cute. My asparagus won't be ready to eat until next year. That's okay. It takes a long time, and I don't think the blueberries are going to yield anything this year, but that's okay. I'm just going to take that bush, put a burlap over it in my shed so that it survives the winter, and we'll just take it out next spring when it gets to be nice out again. I'm not even sure if I have to do that, but from what I'm looking up online, when you have something like that, you want to protect it over the winter. So yeah, so I'm pretty excited about all of this. I've never had a full garden like this. It's not really a full garden, but to me it is. And yeah, so far so good. I've got little baby, teeny tiny little pepper buds. I've got a couple little tomatoes growing, which is awesome. Onions. I've got radishes going. So all good stuff, all very positive. And you know, when I think about my garden, and I know the video is getting a little bit long in the tooth, think about my garden, I think back to my childhood. And one of the properties that joined with ours, of course they were all separated by chain link fence, the backyard of an elderly man named Mr. Thorpe. And Mr. Thorpe lived on the right side of our property. In his backyard, like I said, it backed up to where our driveway was. And he didn't have a huge piece of property. Excuse me, guys, I'm rashy. So I'm itchy. So, like I said, not a big piece of property. I think, you know, his house, it was a small little house built in like the 30s. And it was on like a 50 by 100 plot. But his whole backyard in its entirety, except for the back porch, was a beautiful garden. And he had flowers, and he had every kind of vegetable that you could imagine. And I'm not sure if his wife canned some of these, but I imagine they probably did. They lived there for a very long time, I believe 50 years. And every summer he would have just this awesome harvest of all kinds of vegetables. Tomatoes, cucumbers, green beans, oh gosh, lettuces, and the most beautiful flowers. And I used to love as a child looking through the chain link at this glorious garden that he had. And, you know, I never thought that I would get to the age where I would want to do that or even appreciate doing it myself. And his was in the ground, it wasn't in containers, so his was a lot more work, and he did it like way into his 70s. You know, I can't even remember when he passed away. I mean, he lived to a pretty ripe old age. But, wow. So that's my inspiration, Mr. Thorpe's garden. I know it sounds like something like Mr. McGregor, but, you know, that's what I grew up next to. I'm so grateful that I had that experience. You know, he would give produce to all the neighbors. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, my mom could never eat garden tomatoes. She would always get hives. I don't know why. Maybe it was because they had a high acid level and the supermarket tomatoes didn't. But I just remember the taste of them, with a little bit of salt on them, and they were just this beautiful, rich red color. You know, I wish he was still here so I could get some advice from him. So, Mr. Thorpe, if you've got your eye on us from up in heaven, thank you for the wonderful example growing up. You know, you made an impression on all of us kids that grew up around your house. And with that, my friends, I will just remind you, since most of this video has been about people being judgmental and unkind, to just be kind to each other and don't be judgmental. You know, be as frugal as possible, but not cheap. And that's another video. I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm going to be doing some cooking tomorrow morning, so I probably will make a few informative videos, you know, just around that. If it's not too horrendously hot in my kitchen, I don't have the AC in there yet. I do have a pretty high-powered AC in my living room, and that's managing to keep the whole house clean, thankfully. Clean, I'm all right. Cool. So, yeah, my hope is to do that. But I will post some pictures of the container garden and how it's doing at the end of this video, as well as my son's before and after video. Before and after dental, after his accident, after the treatment, rather. You know what I mean. Before the treatment and after the treatment. Whew, see guys, I get winded and I get tired, so forgive me for that. Anyways, I hope that you all have a restful night's sleep, and I hope that you all are doing well. I'm sending love from New Jersey as always. As always, please share, like, and subscribe and help my little channel grow. Until next time, my friends, bye-bye.